What you're about to hear has never been reported by mainstream media. The real story behind Elon Musk's Twitter acquisition isn't what they told you. It's darker, more complex, and involves players that most people have never heard of. This is the untold story of the day the world's richest man came face to face with the one person who could unravel everything he'd built. It was March 15, 2023. The kind of gray, overcast morning in San Francisco that seems to drain the color from everything. But inside the federal courthouse on Golden Gate Avenue, the atmosphere was electric with tension. Today wasn't supposed to be about Elon Musk. The docket listed a routine hearing about social media regulations and antitrust concerns. But sometimes, the most explosive moments in history happen when no one's expecting them. Judge Margaret Chen had been preparing for this case for months. At 52 years old, she was one of the most respected federal judges on the West Coast. MIT graduate, former tech executive at Google, and someone who understood the digital landscape better than perhaps any other judge in America. She had a reputation for asking the questions that others were afraid to ask. Musk arrived at 9:47 a.m., 13 minutes late. Not unusual for him, but today it felt different. His usual confident stride seemed forced. His Twitter-famous smirk was nowhere to be seen. The man who had revolutionized electric cars, private space travel, and social media itself was about to face something he couldn't engineer his way out of. The hearing was supposed to be about Twitter's content moderation policies post-acquisition. Standard stuff. But Judge Chen had been digging deeper than anyone realized. For 3 months, her team had been following a paper trail that led to some very uncomfortable questions about the real motivations behind the $44 billion purchase. Mr. Musk, Judge Chen began, her voice cutting through the murmur of the packed courtroom. Before we discuss content moderation, I'd like to understand something fundamental. Why Twitter? It seemed like a simple question. Musk had answered it 100 times before. Free speech. Digital town square. Democracy. The usual talking points rolled off his tongue with practiced ease. But then Chen opened a folder. I'm curious about this timeline, she said, pulling out a document. Your first secret purchase of Twitter shares began in January 2022. But according to these communications we've obtained through our investigation, discussions about acquiring a major social media platform began much earlier. November 2021 to be precise. Musk's lawyer immediately objected, but Chen continued. These are text messages between you and several undisclosed parties. Would you like to explain why you told someone named KS that the information war requires new ammunition? This was 2 months before your public interest in Twitter began. The courtroom went silent. Even the court reporters seemed to pause their typing. Musk, for perhaps the first time in his public life, didn't have an immediate comeback. Your Honor, Musk finally said, I discuss many things in private conversations. Context matters. Indeed it does, Chen replied. So let's provide some context. What happened next changed everything we thought we knew about the Twitter acquisition. Judge Chen revealed that her investigation had uncovered a network of communications between Musk and various international players that painted a very different picture of his motivations. Mr. Musk, are you familiar with the Cambridge Analytica scandal? Chen asked. Of course. Everyone in tech is. And you're aware that after Facebook's privacy scandals, there was a significant appetite among certain political and business interests for a more cooperative social media platform? Musk's legal team was objecting left and right, but Chen had done her homework. Every document was properly obtained, every question carefully crafted. Let me be more specific, Chen continued. Our investigation has revealed that your Twitter acquisition was facilitated by funding from sources that have not been fully disclosed to the SEC. More importantly, these sources had very specific requirements about how the platform would be modified. She pulled out another document. This is a memorandum dated December 2021, outlining plans to modify Twitter's algorithm to amplify certain perspectives while maintaining plausible deniability about bias. The document bears your digital signature. The revelation hit the courtroom like a lightning bolt. Journalists in the gallery frantically typed on their phones. Musk's face had gone pale. That document is taken completely out of context, Musk protested. Every social media platform makes algorithmic adjustments. True, Chen acknowledged. But not every platform receives specific instructions about which political figures to amplify and which to suppress. Not every platform agrees to create conditions favorable to information warfare, as this document states. Chen wasn't finished. Her next revelation would prove even more damaging. Mr. Musk, let's discuss your international funding sources for the Twitter acquisition. You've publicly stated that you financed the purchase through Tesla stock sales and loans. But our investigation has uncovered wire transfers totaling $8.7 billion from accounts linked to foreign state entities. That's preposterous, Musk shot back, but his voice lacked its usual conviction. Is it? These transfers occurred between October and November 2022, just before your acquisition completed. The money was routed through 17 different shell companies across 6 countries before reaching your acquisition fund. Chen displayed a complex chart showing the money trail. Each of these entities has connections to state-sponsored information operations. The same organizations that were behind documented interference in the 2020 election cycle. The implications were staggering. If true, it meant that foreign entities had essentially purchased influence over one of the world's most important communication platforms. Furthermore, Chen continued, we have evidence that certain content moderation decisions at Twitter post-acquisition were not made by your team, but by external consultants with ties to these same organizations. Musk's lawyer was on his feet. Your Honor, these allegations are based on speculation and conspiracy theories. Are they? Chen asked calmly. Mr. Musk, would you be willing to provide your complete communication records for the period between November 2021 and November 2022? Including encrypted messages, private server communications, and any conversations conducted through Neuralink's experimental communication protocols? The mention of Neuralink's communication protocols sent another shock through the courtroom. Few people knew that Musk's brain-computer interface company had been developing advanced, encrypted communication methods that were virtually untraceable. Let's talk about Neuralink, Chen said, apparently reading Musk's mind. Your brain-computer interface company has been developing communication technologies that go far beyond helping paralyzed patients. Our technical experts have analyzed the platform's capabilities. She pulled up a technical schematic on the courtroom's display screen. These documents, obtained through our investigation, show that Neuralink has created a communication network that allows for real-time, encrypted messaging that bypasses traditional internet infrastructure. Musk shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Neuralink is a medical device company focused on helping people with disabilities. Primarily, yes, Chen agreed. But these technical specifications show capabilities for mass communication, real-time sentiment analysis, and what's described as thought pattern influence. Would you care to explain how these technologies might relate to social media platform management? The courtroom was in stunned silence. Chen was suggesting that Musk had used advanced brain-computer interface technology to manage Twitter in ways that the public had never imagined. Furthermore, Chen continued, we have evidence that certain high-profile Twitter users were unknowingly participating in beta tests of this technology. Their posting patterns, engagement behaviors, and even the language they used showed signs of external influence. She displayed a data analysis chart. This shows the posting patterns of 50 major Twitter influencers before and after your acquisition. The changes aren't random. They follow specific patterns that match Neuralink's experimental protocols for thought pattern modification. Chen's next revelation came from an unexpected source. Mr. Musk, are you familiar with Dr. Sarah Martinez, formerly of your Neuralink team? Musk's face tightened. I know Dr. Martinez. She left the company due to philosophical differences. Indeed she did. And last month, she came forward with some very interesting information about why she left. Chen opened another folder. Dr. Martinez has provided us with detailed documentation about Project Mirror, an undisclosed Neuralink initiative that began in early 2022. Would you like to tell the court about Project Mirror, or shall I? Musk remained silent, his jaw clenched. Project Mirror, Chen explained to the courtroom, was designed to create what Dr. Martinez describes as cognitive influence networks. The goal was to use social media platforms as testing grounds for brain-computer interface technologies that could subtly influence human thought patterns. The implications were terrifying. Chen was describing technology that could essentially control human thoughts through social media interaction. According to Dr. Martinez's documentation, Twitter was chosen as the primary testing platform because of its real-time nature and influential user base. The acquisition wasn't about free speech, Mr. Musk. It was about creating the world's largest behavioral modification experiment. Chen displayed a series of brain scan images. These are before and after scans of volunteer test subjects who were exposed to Twitter content modified through Project Mirror protocols. The changes in neural activity are significant and measurable. But Chen's most explosive revelation was yet to come. Mr. Musk, Our investigation has also uncovered communications between your team and various government agencies. Not just American agencies. She pulled out a thick file. These are documented meetings between your representatives and officials from the Chinese Ministry of State Security, the Russian Internet Research Agency, and what appears to be a previously unknown division of the North Korean government. Musk's lawyer objected vigorously, but Chen pressed on. Each of these meetings occurred during your Twitter acquisition period. Each involved discussions about cooperative information management and strategic narrative deployment. Would you care to explain why you were meeting with foreign intelligence agencies while purchasing America's most influential social media platform? The courtroom erupted. Journalists were frantically calling their editors. Legal analysts in the gallery looked stunned. Furthermore, Chen continued, once order was restored, we have evidence that certain Twitter policy changes post-acquisition were not your decisions, but requirements imposed by these foreign entities in exchange for their financial support. She displayed a list of policy changes. The reinstatement of certain controversial accounts, the modification of trending algorithms, the changes to content moderation policies. All of these matched specific requirements outlined in these international agreements. Musk finally exploded. This is completely fabricated. He shouted, jumping to his feet. You're describing some kind of international conspiracy that doesn't exist. Sit down, Mr. Musk, Chen ordered calmly. And explain these bank records. She displayed a series of financial documents. These show regular payments from Twitter's accounts to companies owned by the same foreign entities that helped fund your acquisition. Monthly payments of $50 million, continuing to this day. Musk looked like he was about to have a panic attack. Those are consulting fees. For what consulting services? Strategic advisory services. From foreign intelligence agencies? The question hung in the air like a sword over Musk's head. Chen leaned forward. Mr. Musk, let me ask you directly, is Twitter currently being operated under the influence of foreign governments? What happened next would change the course of American social media forever. Musk sat down slowly, his hands shaking slightly. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he spoke. The world is more complicated than people understand. Chen waited. When you're trying to revolutionize transportation, space travel, and human consciousness itself, you need allies. Some of those allies don't fly American flags. The admission sent shockwaves through the courtroom. So you admit that foreign entities have influence over Twitter's operations? Musk looked up, and for the first time all day, his eyes had their old fire. I admit that the future belongs to those brave enough to build it, regardless of what flag they serve under. Chen stared at him for a long moment. Mr. Musk, do you understand that you may have just admitted to operating a foreign-influenced information platform that reaches hundreds of millions of Americans? I understand, Musk said quietly, that I'm trying to save humanity from itself. Sometimes that requires uncomfortable alliances. Chen closed her folder and looked directly at Musk. Mr. Musk, based on the evidence presented today, this court is ordering an immediate federal investigation into Twitter's operations, ownership structure, and foreign influences. Until this investigation is complete, Twitter will operate under federal oversight. The courtroom exploded into chaos. Musk's legal team immediately filed emergency appeals. Journalists rushed out to file their stories. But the damage was done. Chen continued speaking over the noise. Furthermore, this court is referring this matter to the Department of Justice for potential criminal charges related to undisclosed foreign agent activity and violation of federal election laws. She paused, letting the gravity of the moment sink in. Mr. Musk, you came here today thinking you were answering routine questions about content moderation. Instead, you've revealed what may be the largest foreign influence operation in American history. As Musk left the courthouse that day, he wasn't the same man who had walked in. The revelation that Twitter, the platform he claimed to have purchased for free speech, was potentially under foreign control changed everything. Within hours, Twittergate was trending worldwide. Government officials called for immediate investigations. Foreign governments denied involvement, but their denials rang hollow in light of the documented evidence Chen had presented. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the Neuralink whistleblower, held a press conference that evening. What people need to understand, she said, is that this technology exists. Brain-computer interfaces that can influence human behavior through social media are not science fiction. They're reality, and they're being used right now. The implications were staggering. If Chen's allegations were true, it meant that millions of Americans had been unknowingly subjected to foreign psychological manipulation every time they opened Twitter. Within a week, the story had spread globally. Other countries began investigating their own social media platforms for foreign influence. The European Union launched immediate proceedings. China and Russia denied involvement but began restricting access to American social media platforms. Musk himself seemed to disappear from public view. Tesla stock plummeted. SpaceX faced government contract reviews. Neuralink's human trials were suspended pending investigation. But perhaps most significantly, the public began to understand that the digital platforms they trusted weren't just businesses. They were battlegrounds in a global information war. Technical experts who analyzed the leaked Neuralink documents revealed the true scope of the technology involved. Project Mirror hadn't just been about influencing individual users. It had been designed to shape global opinion on everything from elections to international conflicts. The technology works by analyzing neural response patterns to different types of content, explained Dr. James Peterson, a neuroscientist at Stanford who reviewed the documents. By understanding how specific words, images, and ideas trigger responses in the brain, you can craft content that essentially hijacks human decision-making processes. The leaked documents showed that the technology had been tested on over 2 million Twitter users without their knowledge or consent. The tests measured everything from political opinion changes to purchasing behavior modifications. This isn't just privacy violation, Peterson noted. This is direct manipulation of human consciousness on a mass scale. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a web of international connections that went far beyond what Chen had revealed in court. The Twitter acquisition had been just one part of a larger strategy to control global information flow. Similar operations were discovered in other countries, involving other social media platforms and other tech billionaires. The pattern was consistent: massive private investments backed by foreign state actors, all designed to influence public opinion and political outcomes. What we're seeing, said former CIA analyst Jennifer Walsh, is the weaponization of social media on a global scale. This isn't just about Twitter or Elon Musk. This is about the fundamental manipulation of democratic processes worldwide. For Musk personally, the revelations were devastating. The man who had built his reputation on innovation and human advancement was now seen as a potential foreign agent. Close associates revealed that Musk had become increasingly paranoid and isolated. He genuinely believed he was saving humanity, said one former SpaceX executive who spoke on condition of anonymity. But somewhere along the way he lost sight of who he was working with and what they really wanted. The psychological pressure was enormous. Musk, who had always controlled his own narrative through social media, now found himself at the center of a story he couldn't control. The legal proceedings that followed were complex and unprecedented. How do you prosecute someone for operating a social media platform under foreign influence? The laws weren't designed for this new form of information warfare. Musk's defense team argued that their client had been manipulated by sophisticated foreign operatives who had convinced him that their goals aligned with his own. Mr. Musk believed he was promoting free speech and human advancement, his lawyer argued. He was unaware that he was being used as a front for foreign propaganda operations. But prosecutors painted a different picture. They argued that Musk had knowingly accepted foreign funding and influence in exchange for control over one of the world's most important communication platforms. The technical evidence was overwhelming. Forensic analysis of Twitter's algorithm changes showed clear patterns of foreign influence. Certain political messages were artificially amplified while others were suppressed. The changes weren't random. They followed specific patterns that aligned with foreign policy objectives. The algorithm modifications were surgical, explained Dr. Maria Santos, a computer scientist who analyzed the code. They were designed to be subtle enough to avoid detection while still significantly influencing what users saw and how they responded. The most damning evidence came from the Neuralink connection. Brain scan data from test subjects showed clear evidence of behavioral modification through social media exposure. Users who had been exposed to the modified content showed measurable changes in political opinions, purchasing behaviors, and even personal relationships. The international response was swift and severe. NATO countries began developing new protocols for social media security. The United Nations called for international regulations on brain-computer interface technology. But perhaps most significantly, the public lost trust in social media platforms entirely. User engagement dropped dramatically across all platforms as people realized the extent to which their thoughts and opinions had been manipulated. This is a watershed moment, said Dr. Rebecca Chen, a professor of digital ethics at Harvard. People are finally understanding that social media isn't just entertainment or communication. It's a tool for mass psychological manipulation. The long-term implications of the Twitter conspiracy were staggering. If brain-computer interface technology could be used to manipulate social media users, what other applications might exist? Could the technology influence voters during elections? Could it be used to suppress dissent or promote specific ideologies? We're looking at the potential end of free will as we understand it, warned Dr. Peterson. If technology can directly influence human thought processes through digital platforms, then the concept of independent decision-making becomes questionable. The technology also raised questions about the nature of human consciousness itself. If external forces could influence thoughts and behaviors through digital interfaces, what did that mean for personal identity and autonomy? As this story was being written, the legal proceedings were still ongoing. Musk faced potential charges under the Foreign Agents Registration Act, conspiracy laws, and various financial crime statutes. But regardless of the legal outcome, the damage to public trust was permanent. The revelation that one of the world's most influential platforms had been operating under foreign control changed how people thought about social media, technology, and the digital future. Judge Chen's investigation had uncovered something that many had suspected but few had been able to prove: that the digital platforms we use every day aren't neutral tools for communication, but weapons in a global information war. The real question wasn't whether Elon Musk was guilty of the charges against him. The real question was whether humanity could develop the wisdom and the technology safeguards needed to protect human consciousness in an age of digital manipulation. As Musk himself had said in that federal courtroom, the world is more complicated than people understand. The Twitter conspiracy had shown just how complicated and how dangerous that world had become. What you've just read isn't just a story about Elon Musk or Twitter. It's a warning about the future we're rapidly approaching. Brain-computer interface technology is real. Social media manipulation is real. Foreign influence operations are real. The details of this particular story may be dramatized, but the underlying technologies and threats are not. We are living in an age where the line between human thought and digital influence is becoming increasingly blurred. The question isn't whether stories like this will happen. The question is whether we'll recognize them when they do, and whether we'll have the courage to confront the uncomfortable truths about the digital world we've created. Judge Margaret Chen's investigation may have been fictional, but the need for such investigations is very real. In a world where technology can influence human consciousness itself, vigilance isn't just important. It's essential for the survival of human freedom. The next time you scroll through your social media feed, remember this story. Remember that every post you see, every reaction you have, every opinion you form might not be entirely your own. In the age of digital manipulation, the most important question isn't what you think. It's whether you're thinking for yourself. The Twitter conspiracy revealed that the future of human consciousness itself may depend on our ability to distinguish between authentic thoughts and manufactured ones. That's not just a technological challenge, it's the defining challenge of our time.